Welcome back. I'm Alfred Webre, and we're on Exopolitics TV. And today we have an extraordinary guest, and we're greatly privileged and honored to have him with us. And Mr. Drake Kent Bailey. Did I get that correct, Drake?
Yes, you did.
And he is known as Drake, and he is an extraordinary person. Drake, you and I have had various phone conversations, and you shared with me that you see yourself, or rather you are, a product of the hybrid program, and I wondered if you could just briefly explain that for our audience.
Basically what it entails is fairly simplistic. The premise of our government and its intelligent attitude towards things put ET in a funny situation, and that was where our government and military felt like they were in charge. And that did not go over too well with beings that were extraordinarily advanced, so much so that they had trouble even coming to visit, and further to be in a physical form and talk to us at this level. This had been explained, but our government people apparently did miss that part. After their extraordinary efforts to just be here and to show up and talk to us, our government decided they were in charge, period, and that ET would be assimilated or brought into our system. And this was not basically the idea, and ET took exception to it. And one of the military attachés with the ambassador, who was a part of these interviews, said, "That's it." And he got up, walked over, and opened the door. And the ambassador excused himself and said, "What's the matter with you?" And the guy looked at them and said, "You think you're in charge of something? I'll tell you what. You come to deep space with your present attitudes and problems, and I will blast you to kingdom come. You are not allowed out of a certain area, period, no matter what. I won't let you." And they walked out. ET then decided that because they needed to raise the human race as a whole, they went all over the planet under an operation or program, and what the civilian program. What this was where ET took future information. They knew at the time either who were going to be mates and or when conception would be. And before the time of the conception of an individual, they would take both parents one at a time and adjust them, and this is a quote from them. It's an adjustment, and it's not explainable, to make sure that they would have a certain set of traits. Then they also implanted them with what you would call small amplifiers to make sure that these traits were ingrained in the children at a basic biological DNA type of level, so that the children, when they came out, would be extraordinary. If there was one or more, it varies. Then each child at a certain age was also abducted, worked on, or adjusted, and implanted to give us a greater advantage of capabilities. And that certain of us who they knew the general future timeline of would develop into what they were supposed to be, but at a greater proficiency, a greater level of what that was. This does not necessarily mean that it's just going to be confined to a specific talent. It might be someone like myself who is a generalist. So the talents and capabilities, first of all, were confined to people who were sensitive. This is someone who is able to be sensitive to events in terms of how they will unfold according to their actions, and that sort of thing. Sort of intuitive or highly intuitive type of person. It was best when both parents were both that way. In my case, I lucked out and both parents were that way. Then the children, after these people were modified or whatever you want to call it and implanted, would be exceptional without assistance on their own. So when you take the children and also adjust or modify and implant them, then the children can come out exceptional in just about every way possible. It begins to open the door slowly to a greater probability of your capabilities, literally. So the civilian program was initiated for two reasons. One, they needed to be sure that the human race could be aware and have the capable potential that we're going to need here in the near future, as well as possibly make advancements in the general, I'd call it the civil makeup of the whole planet. So in other words, you're not confined to any one thing, but everyone kind of goes in the same general direction, wherever they may be, whatever culture, etc. So the idea of the program was to advance mankind as a whole, so that we would be more ready for what's coming in the very near future, which is a greater advancement. And I am a part of that program.
Excellent. Now, do you have any indication of how many graduates of that program there are, and whether it's an ongoing program?
I don't know about ongoing. My understanding was that our children, the children that I have or my generation has, would be of a very particular type of general social leaning, more towards the let's enjoy, let's have fun, and forget the serious stuff. Other than if you need to apply a science or something like that, you would seriously attend to that. That sort of focus and application is a little different than being serious about everything. So if anybody really reads anymore and they read the Bible, they'll find that the joy, rejoy connotations fit directly into that. It's sort of like coming at life like the little kid that wants to run and scream and holler and roll in the grass because it just feels so nice and everything's so perfect. Ideology. That in that sort of a social parameter, you make great strides in a whole bunch of areas.
Right. Very good. Now, the way that our interview kind of happened today was that you and I were having a conversation, and you mentioned that you have been involved and had lived with the originator of the concept of the Matrix, and I went, wow, and I'm sitting here looking at Wikipedia, and it says The Matrix is a science fiction action media franchise, and then they say created by Andy and Larry Wachowski and distributed by Warner Brothers. And there were 3 feature films: The Matrix, 1999, and and it stars Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, and others. Now, you and I know that first of all, Wikipedia is not the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So, could you lead us through how it was that you got involved with the originators of the Matrix, and are these the Wachowski brothers, or is it somebody prior to the Wachowski brothers?
Well, the man I know who told me and proved that he wrote the Matrix, the story itself, as well as a portions of it adapted to scenes and screenplay type of writing, This would be like a scene here. Envision, look at this and think about this, and then to describe a screen like you would with summer theater or something of this nature, where it would be a little bit of a stage type of presentation to get people to use their mind, so they would envision, they'd get pictures in their head. So the originator proved it to me in that way, because he showed me some original writings that he knew that they were going to have to change, as well as the base storyline is totally different than what was originally written. Now, how many sets of hands it went through in order to get to the screen, I don't know. I do know that it was rewritten so that it could be a continuation, more so than the original, much more so. Then you have the processes that are put into the movie in terms of a development of an individual who is suddenly dropped into a totally different idea of realities, and that there might be more than one of them, and you might have had your head dropped into a computer program kind of thing. That's kind of hard for a lot of people to think about, and what those things entail. So that's, primarily the basis for it. But, my suggestion to everybody is get a copy of the movie The Matrix, the first one. Don't worry about the second and third. Those are primarily into an area called commercialization, where you can turn a buck. But the first movie contains most of the principles, and it might just be a very simplistic statement by any one of the characters that that can have extraordinary impact on the capability we have in our present situation, which is a little different than what a lot of people understand.
Right. Now, just looking again here at the Wikipedia summary of the Matrix movie, which I saw, as did many of our circles in 1999, and which continues to have a great impact. It says this is where there's a dystopia in which Earth is dominated. That is, the Matrix movie makes the Matrix appear as a fiction, and in this fiction, sentient machines had been created early in the 21st century that we're in, and had rebelled against humanity and had taken over humans, and they devised a way to extract humans' bioelectricity and thermal energy by growing people in pods, and keeping these people's minds under control by cybernetic implants, connecting them to a simulated reality called the Matrix. And the virtual reality world simulated by the Matrix resembles human civilization around the turn of the 21st century. The time period was chosen because it supposedly represents the pinnacle of human civilization. So that's kind of the storyline. However, the interview that you and I are having is about another Matrix, and that's the virtual reality that we, the human race, inhabit. And it's the origin, the reality of the Matrix, its nature, and its future, and how to deconstruct it. Is that how you understand why we're here today?
Pretty much. Most people do not grasp the ideas, first of all. Most people see this as some kind of dismissible sci-fi rambling or dream or something of this nature. What is not understood is that, and I don't like personally, I don't care for the religiosity being a form of control, etc. To me is not the point. So my readings in terms of biblical reference and things of that nature look more to what was really stated, which is a little bit different than a lot of people understand. Within that, people don't realize that if you look at the book, the Bible, and you look at the Matrix, and you hold them side by side, you're going to find a reference in the Bible that stipulates exactly what is stated in the Matrix in terms of realities, in terms of you, in terms of us, in terms of the whole of things. and that we do have a certain measure of control. This is what the main character in the movie The Matrix was discovering. Now, in the original story, as my understanding of it goes, is that that person was taught much more concisely rather than just discovering. And it was an extraordinarily tight relationship between the mentor and the student, and it was a much more complex reality in terms of the outcome. It's when you look at it today, you'll look at things and say it's not possible to walk on water. Yet it states that not only did Jesus Christ do it, but also one of his people. And the statement is, you think that I'm doing something that you can't do? Give me your hand. Well, the confidence within something other than the individual led that person to take that first step. And when they did, they found out they could walk on water. And you didn't get your foot wet in the process. And whoo. But this is a biblical story. This does not have any so-called physical evidence to it. And yet there's a lot of people that look at that and believe it. Or they go, wow, I sure would like to learn how to do that. And all of these sorts of things. So my idea was I had the same questions as everybody does. I read a lot of sci-fi, got all kind of freaked out ideas from a bunch of different people looking at things in different ways. But yet, when I came to a few of them, Isaac Asimov is one of the authors that actually held a doctorate in physics and yet also wrote science fiction. So you got to watch his science fiction. Some of it has a lot of truth in it, and you have to be very discerning in order to be able to understand which ones are which. Some of them are totally fictitious and really cool in the way they're put together. The guy did great writing, but when you add that concept to The Matrix, when you add that concept to a story in the Bible, and then you look at things, you go, I need to figure out how that works. So most of my whole life has been trying to figure out how those exceptions to what we think about things comes about. So this is why, plus I'm loaded with curiosity, so off and down the road I went.
Right. Now, to take the concepts that are inside the original Matrix story and even the film version and apply them as lessons or insights to the reality that we inhabit, we know, for example, that we're in a time-space hologram and that we're interference patterns. I mean, we touch our face, we touch our computer. These are just interference patterns of energy. And so, in a way, we're inside of a virtual reality. That's, by definition, a virtual reality. And then on top of that, there are all sorts of forces in this particular now, in this time space, on this planet, Terra's Earth at this time, that are trying to, convince us that their story's right or their story's right, and there's a huge amount of mind control. In fact, amongst our circles that say, oh, that's the Matrix that's doing it, i.e. the power matrix is trying to convince us that, they're queen of the planet or the government's right and we're just useless eaters. Is that a powerful insight, and how does one deconstruct that matrix?
Well, you're not going to deconstruct it. The basis of the matrix at this level is one of a training program, so to speak, a testing ground where an individual can go through whatever life they happen to be traveling through at the time, and because of the incidents and fun and games that they run across within that lifetime, they can act, react, or whatever according to the situation and circumstance, what their involvement is. And the ideology is to come out on the other side, not only clean, in terms of not having done something nasty just because you could, but also to advance yourself beyond the limitation. Now, one of the things with the Matrix that everybody sort of misses, and that is the introduction or the beginnings of it. The first thing they do is tell you that that they did something to the main character, which he didn't believe because he thought it was freaky. And all of a sudden he finds out and says, "My God, that thing was real!" And this is a removal of a bug, as it's called. And what has to be understood is this. You can put in a virtual reality setting or within a computer, you can put any kind of anything you want. This does not necessarily limit a living entity who gets involved with that to the same limitations as the program itself would have, no matter how complex that program might be. In short, the idea that you got an extra person sitting on your desk top, as an example, or running through a mainframe, however it might be, is a concept that people accept, but only in a cartoon world. In the Matrix, they take the idea of programming, which is something that has been done for years anyway, similarly to what the Matrix does, the movie. And the interesting part is that you, when given certain information, not only hold the information in terms of like you read a book and remembered it all, but you actually have what's called an experiential memory. In other words, you actually felt as if you were, say it was electronics, you were soldering the stuff that was presented and assembling it and or. In the Matrix, they're doing what's called martial arts. And in the martial arts training, one of the things that comes to the obvious understanding of the main character is that you're not in the same place you were in terms of a true reality. You are now in the Matrix. You are now in a computer program. Does my strength, etc., have an effect in this place? That was a question. Do you think, and the guy's sitting on the floor, he just got his butt whipped pretty good, and he's panting on the floor. And as he's drawing deep breaths, the guy looks at him and says, "Do you think that's air you're breathing in this place?" Oops. The difference is this. In terms of application, same ideas. The application difference is that the Matrix is not something we have been put into per se. It has been put into us. The control mechanism covers the planet. Okay, so therefore, the reality, as we would see it, the situations, the intricate details, are handled by a program. And this program is to do two things. It is to make sure that we do not advance ourselves too far, so that we actually gain insight, understanding, and or control. And the other part is to make sure that we do not have the capacity to advance too far, in that we are either too busy making a living or don't believe that stuff, or whatever the reasoning might be, doesn't matter. When you add chemicals, and everybody knows about fluoride and a bunch of these other things, what they don't realize is that the drinking water also contains great loads of leftover other medications that, like psychotropic drugs. There's a bunch of things that goes into this that are in your water supply. So you're getting dumbed down 3 or 4 times over. You're getting zapped. And you don't notice it because it's on a very minor level. You don't notice it because the electrical interference that we take in because we're exposed to it from the Matrix does have a controlling factor. It is a form of electronic, so to speak, electronic mind control. So you got the chemicals, then you got this, And then you got the reality that things are going to stay the same no matter what you do. They prove this on a regular basis, and that goes to your stature standing in terms of what you do. You can make a ton of money. And most families right now, you got both adults working simply to make ends meet. And every time you get to the point where you can relax a little bit, every time you are getting ahead of that just a little bit, you'll notice that at that particular exact point in time, as everybody else thinks they're also getting ready to get over the top just a little bit so they can have some breathing room, all the costs go up. Now, I hate to tell you, but that's not possible worldwide without having some sort of centralized ideology and control. So you get back into the things that you've mentioned. You have the positive and negative timeline, and those are a portion, but not the complete thing with the whole of it. Because somebody who don't know what something is, you can hang it in front of their face, they still won't recognize it. If it's too much in the way, they're probably throwing it in the trash. And it could be the most important thing on the planet. But when people don't recognize that they've been played games with, right now we got a lot of financial stuff coming out where the banks have been playing with interest rates on every kind of anything that has an interest rate. Everything, all of it. They've been playing it to their advantage. So nothing is, quote, sacred or out of reach. Everything has to become a corporation, or it can't exist. You cannot be a nonprofit unless you're incorporated as a nonprofit and things of this nature. Well, the problem is that they cannot make those things stick. The problem is that people have said, well, then we just won't have one at all. So either way, in any direction you go, supposedly they win. You can't fight City Hall. So when you break free of some of that, and it don't take much, that first little spot of light that gets in your head starts opening things up. And you will be led, according to what your abilities are in understanding, in a specific direction to full absolute freedom. So that's primarily where the crux of it all.
Right. So the essential insight that, at least that I have gathered from what you've said, which I believe is a considerable insight, is that the matrix is inside, and eventually the matrix just disappears down to nothing, down to a point of nothing, as we open up to enlightenment and to new knowledge and to letting it go. Is that the essential thing that you're saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit different, but the same exact idea. What you want to do is stick that in reverse.
Oh.
Okay. The matrix that you see in the movie.
Yeah.
is more of an interior involvement.
Okay.
One that we have here is more of an exterior involvement.
Oh.
What that means is that each of us are an integral part of the basis of the existence of the matrix.
Oh, okay.
So
we each make up part of the matrix, kind of a
we're
holographic component.
On the other hand, the people who were free or aware were no longer a part of. They were removed from an artificial condition placed on them. This is one that, or placed within them. This one is one where it is placed on you. Now, this does not mean that it does not have internal effects. You're absolutely correct in terms of the thing being a part of you. Now, in terms of its removal, what would happen with that would be primarily a dissipation of reality.
Yeah.
And when you become basically a glob of energy that's not shapeless or formless or whatever, you don't know what it is identifiable to you, and yet it's you. When you no longer have the physical realm as an anchor for your sanity, there's problems that result, and a lot of people would just plain lose it at that point. this is one of the reasons for the solidity of the desk, the clothes, the physicality. Now, you got to remember, it's also a test. It's kind of a trial or test situation. So, and you have to remember that there are several levels. Now, I have been given 5 or 6 different ideas as to what these levels are. The one that I particularly like is the one that E.T. seems to favor, which is this is a third dimension realm. Okay. You have 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the creational realm. The difference between 3 and 4 is the ability to become the sort of a founder of the matrix itself. Okay. What that means is that instead of having to work at using a creational force here or influencing the conditions which surround you, making a real concerted effort in that direction, you have more freedom to be able to do so the higher you go. And when a person here understands that they create their reality, that they create the position that they're in, and through their own choice, then you can make great strides as to changing it. You got a lot of people that say they've defined insanity as doing the same thing and expecting different results. Well, right. If you take, because you're forced to do the same thing, but can lean in a direction, then you can extract yourself from whatever that rut is that you feel yourself having been put into. And what happens is that both the idea of your subconscious being a directive of you, how you act, what you do, and your will, your freedom of will of, I don't really want to get blisters digging ditches anymore. I want to do something else. Then to couple that with the idea that what's stated in the book is the very desires of your heart are to be made yours. Oh, cool. So that means I have to learn everything I can about my situation and condition and the manner in which to change it. As a man believeth in his heart, so is he. That covers wherever you go, there you are. Unless you change you, you don't change anything. That's what these are saying. And if you want to get out of that rut, if you want to quit digging the hole deeper that you're already in, you have to understand how to do that. And one of the several ways, there are several ways to do that. I just described one that's pretty easy to do.
Right. Okay, now, so you talk about the process of ascension, which I imagine is what? Because how does ascension relate to the matrix and to these different levels?
Okay, well, the matrix does not as such go away until such time as you no longer have anything to do with it, which would be level 8, where you go back and get in the bleachers and watch what the Creator does, as my understanding goes. Now, I don't know how, I'm not real sure about that because I ain't been there yet.
I see.
The difference between one level and another is basic vibratory rate.
Right.
Our planet is somewhere between, about, it goes down to around 3 in some cases, which is a little bit morbid. People tend to die at that rate. So you got to raise that up to, say, 5.5, give or take, and you go from there up to about 20 if you're really high-strung. The basis of the planet is a harmonic. In electronics, it's 60 cycles per second. Okay. So there's your wave. There's a waveform to work with. Okay. If you reverse engineer the 60 cycles per second, you will come out with somewhere in the neighborhood of 6.5 to 7.5, somewhere in that area as a base frequency. Okay. Now, when you have something that vibrates and you place another object on it, and that object has a dimensional, and I'm talking about size, relation to the object that's vibrating, it creates a specific frequency within itself different than the base frequency.
Right.
This is anybody that's ever had a big pipe and a little pipe, and you tap on the little pipe and it sounds real big in the big pipe. you begin to understand some of the difference.
Right.
Anyway, so as in terms of ascension, several things have to transpire. Man, in all his great glory, is going to have to come to the realization that we are a part of an extraordinarily complex system. But a simplistic action, a simplistic take upon that complex, can cause something that is extraordinarily complex to alter its condition to allow you more of whatever it is you're after. And the idea of being able to envision and cause this adjustment, the idea that if you understand what the creation sensation within an individual is and project that into a situation, or be able to know that you can see through a wall, whatever it might be, these things are all available if you know how to do them. The problem is that nobody's been taught. One of the more basic problems is the awakening of the people on a basic level to the idea that they can be an integral part of something much greater than themselves. I'll give you the freedom of this country. I'll give you the freedom of the planet. The fact that the United States is a keystone country or state upon the planet for acquiring our freedom, and this is the other biggie, getting rid of the negative timeline. Now, you don't do away with it. It's absorbed into the positive timeline. The removal of duality becomes unicular or singular. When your eye is one, then you shall see, according to Jesus Christ, who knew these things. He was a master. When you understand that the physical realm is under your control, then you can do pretty much what it is you see necessary. If you need a tool, you should be able to go poof, and there it is in your hand. If you need something to happen, then the situation will adjust to a point where there it is. It's a simplistic idea. And so when you keep it real simple, getting your head around it, oh, that ain't possible. Well, God says, believe as you so choose. It's a believe it or not kind of thing. If you want it, we can give you the answer. If you don't want it, that's fine. But realize, and this is the fun part, that it's coming anyway. And what I mean by that is that we have a planetary alignment. We got this 2012 thing sitting staring at us, and the Ascension is going to be one of the entire leg past us of the solar system in which we are, and the galaxy within which we are a part of. We're going to actually turn the lights on, so to speak, in terms of Mother Earth and everything on her is going to the higher levels. The idea then is that people need to know things so they can be prepared, and they don't get the whatever shocked out of them when they wake up one morning and things are a little different. So, the idea is of that. The idea is that being able to not be shocked, or too much so, it's going to be shocking. Everybody will get used to it, but being able to advance from what little you do know to where you're supposed to be, that gives you the opportunity to continue that advancement. This is the whole of the idea of the Ascension. Plus, it also alleviates a lot of the strife and horse hockey and misconceptions that man has had to put up with because we're somewhat limited in our 3D realm. When you get into the fourth dimensional realm, or start getting at the end of the 3D, going into the 4D, that area right in there is where what we are approaching. The difference is that people will no longer see the necessity to use fuels that we do now that cause problems in terms of getting it, in terms of using it, etc. These things will change. There are people actively building flight craft on our planet right now. The military has been doing so for years. The flight craft operate on Earth energies. The more advanced ones operate on galactic energies. And some of them if you go a little bit further, generate their own galactic forces. And it's sort of like what you see in the Jetsons. Everybody is squirreling around in hovercraft, etc. So you don't need to burn fossil fuels and mess up the environment. You don't need to interfere with Mother Nature, as we do now in our present manner of living. There's an extraordinary, and I do mean extraordinary, change. So we're going to have a learning curve to come up with. We're going to have to figure out what we are, how we fit into it, and what to do about it, or with it.
Now just to segue into a related area, and you talk about we are a fractal of God, and I like to quote something that you wrote. You say, the specific area of true spirituality has no room for religion or other form of man's ideas and belief systems. Forget it. It does not work that way, like it or not. All belief systems will undergo extraordinary changes from what we have now. Everyone will find the absolute truth as we progress through the ascension process. This is without incorrect influence of any kind. Thus enters absolute purity of knowing, the source being the Creator. Could you talk more about we being a fractal of God, and this concept of true spirituality has no room for religion or any form of man's ideas and belief systems?
Yeah, it's difficult. One of the problems we have presently is that we do not possess the technology to get our butts back in time far enough to be able to read what was already written, to get to the originality. That's one of the problems with technology. It does have some limitations, especially in this realm. The truth of spirituality is a newfound freedom that most people don't have a concept of, and I mean every form of freedom. The reason that I state that that religion, and there's as many as there are people just about, is incorrect, is that you have a singular entity at the head of the table, so to speak, and everyone is looking to acquire a seat as close to or next to or with that entity. In order to get there, there are certain portions of our understanding that are going to have to change, and several of those involve religious belief. The reason that religious belief is, to me, a problem is because you have a tendency to division amongst the varying religious beliefs. It takes sometimes the whole population of a planet to be able to think of a certain specific thing in order to accomplish a goal, to simply preserve their planet or their way of life or themselves. And the only way that you're going to do that presently with the diversity of language and linguistics is to be able to forget the sociology involved. I'm an American and they're an Iranian. They must be Muslim and we can't do that. Well, I'm going to say, yes, you can. You look at division in terms of you got a Christian church. How many denominations? That's ridiculous. What has happened is two things. Back in the beginning, things were realistic. There were signs, miracles, and wonders performed on a regular basis, and people didn't catch much from that. They said, wow, that's cool. Fix my boil or whatever it was. And as long as it was fixed, they didn't care anymore. Their immediate need or gratification or immediate satisfaction was met. Now, religions are not much different. And I'm going to qualify that by stating that you have different beliefs. Each individual has their own, but you have differing belief systems according to the comfort of the individuals involved. You go through, say, Protestant or Methodist, and you find the one that is most comfortable, best suited to you. I can go to church there and not feel like God's talking to me. like he's really saying, it's up to you, dude. You got to change. It doesn't have anything to do with everything else. You need to catch up. You need to learn this, and you need to go from there. If you put somebody on a spot like that, they're going to find some other place to go or not go at all, one of the two. A lot of people don't go to church because everybody says, you got to believe, you got to do this, you got to do that. Well, people are creatures of habit. And I'll break this down one step further. Irrespective of what you do, most people know what a hammer is. Most people have swung a hammer before. To go along with that, as you are learning to drive nails or tap on something with a hammer, I guarantee you hit your fingers or your thumb or something of this nature. It came to me that I would experiment with these promises of God. And I thought, well, okay, I don't need that, so how do I stop this? What do I do in order to make it quit? And you'll find that you can have the most knowledgeable person in the world. If they sit on their toolbox, you ain't going to get much productivity out of the tools. The tools are meaningless at that point. However, when that person takes those tools out of the box and starts working with them, that's called knowledge in action, which is connotated to wisdom. And the greatest wisdom is that where you actually control things that you don't think about, that you may not fully understand how they work, but it happens the way you think it should anyway. Very simply, you hit your thumb, and there are usually things that come out of your mouth that most people don't want to hear. And it's usually some form of condemnation of everything that exists that ever made a hammer or whatever. It depends on who's on your mind as to what you say about them at that point. Here's the deal. If you go thump on your thumb and you condemn it by, God damn it, that hurts, you suck, whatever. And a lot of people do that, and I don't blame them because it does hurt like a, oh boy, there ain't nothing quite like it. There's a difference here, and here's the difference, and it's called proactivity. And I know that's a neat little word, but what it does is what it means is you change the ideology involved in pain, irrespective of what type it might be. It could be effrontery to your intelligence or whatever. I'm going to specifically concentrate on the thumb. Instead of telling the world how much of a rotten mother that is, that feels like, there's a simple answer to it. The first thing out of your head and your mouth should be, ooh, I know you're going to do that. That's always first. Ooh. The next thing is, what do you do with that? I'm going to tell you that if you bless it, ooh, God bless it, that smarts. Two things will happen. Number one, the pain will ease. Number two, the bleeding will be less. Number three, the damage will not be as great. And number four, it will heal up quicker. Now, that's just the easy part. That's the fun part. You might need a Band-Aid. I don't know. The fun part is that as you make a habit out of that sort of thing, when you start coming close to doing that same, whatever that same thing was that caused you to hit your thumb, you will no longer hit your thumb. Now, that's very, very simplistic. Do you always lose your car keys? You can fix it. Do you have troubles with this or that simplistic thing? Think about it. It can be as simple as burning your fingers every time you cook. The change of the reality has to be realized that in changing that little bitty reality, that means that the matrix is yours to play with if you do things correctly. And that is just one little simple example how it works. Jesus Christ said, I've shown you how it works. And there are no ears to hear. There's no eyes to see. O ye of little understanding. He has a little story in there about a mustard seed. If you had the faith or believing of the capability of that little itty-bitty mustard seed, you could tell a mountain to go jump in the ocean and it would. So long as you had no doubt in your heart, that means the center core of your being, everything in your mind and being said that thing would do what you said, it will. Well, that's a little bit fur for anybody to go. So I'll give you how not to hit your thumb. And I want you to take that and think of a simple situation you don't like. Apply the same sort of thing. It ain't just a God bless it. This involves getting a picture of the way you want it. Not too much different than looking at your thumb and not seeing it all bandaged up and bleeding. It's easy.
Right. Now let me just there's another phrase that you've written here that I'd like to read for the audience, and that is, you're right, freedom of choice breeds freedom of will and is sacred even unto our Creator. And at the beginning of our conversation today, you said that, and I don't remember the exact word, but something that the United States of America has a key role in opening up to the future, i.e. the whole issue of freedom of choice, freedom of will. And yet we have this paradox, which, that here, contrary to the Declaration of Independence, contrary to the Bill of Rights, contrary to the Constitution, and everything embodied there, it seems like there's some entity that is trying to curtail freedom of choice, freedom of will, and everything that is sacred, even unto the Creator within the United States. Could you address that paradox and how it is that the United States or the U.S. people are going to break through to achieve that destiny that you talk about?
Yeah, that's actually not much different than the thumbnail thing and what went before. Now, you have to realize that you have a positive and negative timeline. You also have to realize that those who would exact absolute control over you, in other words, taking your freedom of will, aren't exactly on the good guy's side. So, the other part of this is that, and people don't understand this, I mentioned several levels. Now, within the God realm, there are also several levels. Some of these so-called gods broke off because of the way they felt about it. I'm guessing. Okay, it's not been explained fully yet, but I'm sure I'll get to it because I will ask everybody questions until I get the answer. The premise is that we have fallen angels. We have this. We have Lucifer. We have a singular control mechanism. Well, it's more or less a group. I don't know the size of it yet. I'm learning these things as we go along. But I do know that there are multiple entities. These are considered gods in terms of their capability to control our reality and thereby control us. When you have an entity that is solely and fully consumed with the negative timeline, that means that your political ramifications of what's happened, and everybody knows about a lot of that, the executive orders, the Agenda 21 from the United Nations, the idea that we are becoming a police state, socialist, communist, whatever, all of the nasty things are of the negative timeline and primarily influenced by these gods. Now, I call them lesser or demigods. There are varying levels of them, some of them not equal to us, although they'd like to think they are. The thing that transpires is that individuals with the capability to directly deal with these entities and these problems are all the time attacking these things. It's sort of like the attack you make on darkness, and I'm going to say this again, I've stipulated, get in a dark room with a birthday candle and light that candle and see how much darkness that one little bitty light makes flee from it. Okay, this also has been put into place and into play in terms of happiness. A person who is happy, almost irrespective as to what goes on in their life, has very few really nasty things happen to them generally. And if you watch that sort of thing, it sort of might give you an idea that being happy is a cool way to be. We're, each and every last individual on this planet, to put together a happy day not just for themselves, but everybody they knew. That means everybody gets together and tickles the kids. Mom, dad tickles each other, or just a stupid, happy enjoyment kind of thing. And it can be anything, something that really gives you joy of seeing ducks on a pond, or whatever it might be. Whatever experience makes you kind of lose it and be silly. This, if the entire population did this one day, we would destroy 90% of this control mechanism that has been falsely placed on us. Now, as I said, this reality or matrix that we find ourselves within is not actually the way reality is. I'm not going to go into that. That would take a whole book. But if you can acknowledge that things are screwy or squirrely or it don't act right or whatever, then you get some kind of a flavor for what can be. And each person that addresses, even their thumbnail, brings about a little more positivity. And that positivity is another little light, like that little candle. And these forces have a tendency, and these entities have a tendency to begin to lose it when you start eating away at their power. Right now, you've got an extraordinary problem financially all over a majority of the old power world. The G20, I will say. The G20 has been pared down, in case anybody didn't know, down to around the G7, maybe less than that. You are looking at bailouts. You're looking at things happen of that nature, and they're not happening. People might say they are, but well, they're not. What they did was they recontracted the debts to a certain effect. It looks like a bailout, and there wasn't a dime exchanged. So where's the bailout? It didn't happen. Everybody's been saying, look at martial law, look at this. It ain't happened. They cannot institute it because they are losing the power to be able to control things necessary to make it happen. They would have already come and got everybody. Mr. Weber and I would not be here. I guarantee you, if they had the powers they did just a few years ago. They do not only do they no longer have that power, but there's another little wrinkle in this. They believe, and this is directly from the negatives, they believe that they are our Lord and Master. They believe that they are the kings. They believe that they are the ruling class. And they are arrogant and becoming flippant about showing what their intentions are. Well, we don't care. We don't care about for freedom of religion. We're going to take down all the websites that disagree with the idea that something about birth control disagrees with your religious beliefs. We don't care. Ooh. Before that, they attacked the First Amendment, freedom of speech. You can't say this, you can't say that. It's got to be approved by the government. The government does not give us our rights. That comes from the Creator and the Creator only. And once you realize that, then the government loses a big chunk of whatever it thinks it is. Then you got little things like what we're discussing. They don't want this out. I guarantee you they don't want this information out. The reason they don't is because some individual who, and I'm not going to denigrate anybody, but I'm going to put you in a position where you don't matter. You don't count. You don't amount to squat. You're just taking up place. Useless eaters is one thing that they call old people. That's interesting. I always found I could learn a lot from Grandma and Grandpa and these older guys. I would find the older guy if I didn't know what was going on, and I'd talk to that man. I said, what's going on here? And you don't want to know. Well, yes, I do. I want to keep me out of the frying pan. I don't want to jump in the fire, but I don't want to get in the frying pan either. Now, what's up? We'd have a discussion. I'd talk to him about it could be a technical issue. It could be a lot of things, but irrespective, the idea is the same. Once people understand this and take action on it, they're going to evolve into new beings. You're putting off the idea that you're stuck in that rut. That's the old man that's just talked about in the book, and a lot of preachers say it. You put that off by changing the course. You go from negative to positive. You get out of the usury into the usable. You get your talents run in the right direction, and you get beautiful paintings, extraordinary music, extreme designs and clothes that are not only comfortable and practical, but they're cool to look at. I mean, What's the limit is the idea. And this is the question everybody has to ask themselves. What's my limit? And how come I ain't experiencing something different? Well, if you're doing the same thing every day, sorry about your stuff, that's what you get. You're going to get the same results, no matter what it is. Does that answer that question? Or
Yeah. No, it does. And now, say the period 2012. We're in 2012. 2012 to 2025, say. What's your prognosis? Walk us through what your vision for that period. Well,
it's not my vision as much as it is a predestination.
Okay.
There's a great clock that this is weird. I understand that there's a great clock. This deals with that Wheel in the Sky by Ezekiel.
Okay.
Works in some of the same ways. And what's interesting about it is that this great cosmic clock deals with the cosmos, that which is greater than universes. And the entity known as I call it the creator because it doesn't, to me, have a gender, as far as I've been able to find. You got this creator who puts together this extraordinarily unlimited, complex mechanism. And he gives it a little push, like you do with an old clock when you start them up. You give the pendulum a little push, and it starts going click, 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 click. Well, the difference between that clock and the clock the creator started, and when he started, you only wind the spring once. It never gets unwound all the way. It's always constant, always the same. These are kind of some of it's like the atomic clock is read in a different way, but there's a spring in there. A little atom jumps up and goes ka-ding, and they get a reading, and they go, yeah, there we go. Now, when's it going to do it again? Ding. Okay, now they got a time frame in between it, and all this happy stuff. You want to get into complications, but the understanding's simple. He started this clock, and it's going tick, tick, tick. Now, part of that mechanism, known as the clock, deals with the basis of a solar system in terms of the way in which you got planets going round and round, a central star or sun. That's pretty easy for everybody to get their head around. Now imagine if there are more of them than there are grains of sand on our planet, and you got a galaxy. You have probably, give or take, several trillion races of intelligent beings in our galaxy alone.
Wow.
When people start understanding that we ain't by ourselves, yes, we're the crown of creation. Now, that gets into some interesting things, but the ideology of having buddies, and they may be running around up in outer space, they may be stuck in the same reality. There's supposed to be a whole load more of these planets just like this one. People are struggling, and they're getting squatted on by whomever or whatever, and they're trying to deal with it, and they don't want to do it, and they need help. Some of the people I've been talking to that are supposed to be ETs or related or something, I don't know if they're cousins or how that works, but they're going to go help them. They're next, okay? We are key. Now, I don't know how this happened or where it comes out. I could probably figure the science out if I could get a good picture of a few things and do some pretty heavy math. I'm pretty sure I could figure it out. I haven't found anything yet that I couldn't. But the situation is this. We were designated in this country as being the key country to the planet. Our planet and solar system is key to the rest of existence in terms of being able to have light defeat the darkness. Or, as better understood, the negative timeline being drawn into and assimilated by the positive timeline so that there is no more negativity. In other words, you don't hit your finger with the hammer anymore. That's something you got to remember about this. The further you get up, the more automatic things can be, the higher the technologies. Well, think about where we are, and we're kind of low on the totem pole. Well, let's take a step up. All the way from caveman to now. Okay, imagine going from now, which would be caveman, to wherever it ends up. I can't see quite that far. I know some of the sciences, but I can't see quite that far. And guess what? We do it twice. So that's really going to leave me in the dark. We're going from 3 all the way through 4, all the way into 5. Now, that's a double ascension. Now,
right.
This leaves a different timeline than people think. We're due for our first completion between now and 2012.
Wow.
We're due to make our final ascension by spring of 2013, supposedly. And this depends on what can be found after we get there and can look at it directly. Now, some of the knowledge, and I'm going to be real concise about this, some of the knowledge of that is not available to our capability of understanding yet. The reason for that is that there is experiential processes that you have to go through. So you've got a little time lag there. The Mayan calendars and all of these things do stipulate these. They do show them. Somebody didn't do their homework and show the extended Mayan calendar yet. I think that's extraordinary, but I was able to find it and find out who had it and the whole 9 yards. So it's out there. I'm just kind of waiting around to see it. I think it's going to be neat because it shows, the one we got goes to 2050.
That's extraordinary.
Doesn't show anything after 2012. It's just like the Looking Glass, this ultra secret look into the future project the military had, or government or whatever. They could see into the future. They could tell what the elections were going to be according to what was done here or there or whatever. Okay, well, tell me how much money you could make if you knew which horse was going to win. How many? Think about the lottery. Okay, if you're dealing with a planet and you want to control it, then you have to know what's going on. Now, they ran across a problem a few years back, and that's called 2012. When they started approaching it, there was a bump in the road. And by a bump, I mean a literal thud feel to it. This was before you got to the end of the trail, too. The end of the trail was sort of like a crash in terms of breaking through. But you didn't break into anywhere. What happened was that bump in the road shook things up. And I mean, they actually had seismic events at these locations where they were doing this. So, you're fooling with something you probably shouldn't fool with, but knowing some of the people that I know in government, they're not too swift, so they're playing with it anyway. And they go along and they start getting closer and closer to the light. The problem with the light is that you have a tendency to lose your reality the closer you get to it. In other words, you begin to see through people. And this was beginning to be a serious concern, especially to the technicians who are outside this area walking around, becoming translucent. Hey, man, I can see the wall behind you. Yeah, I can see the machinery behind you. Dude, we're going to have to do something. This ain't right. Yeah, man, I think maybe we're going a little too far. Maybe we should turn this off. And the consensus was we turn it off. Now, the problem with that is that whenever you do something of that nature, you build an energy bubble, so to speak, which has to dissipate. And its dissipation went back into the planet. And that's sort of like a biting a horse or something. Or like a big bug crawling on a horse and you see its skin twitch, trying to get that bug to let go. And pretty soon if the horsefly bites the horse goes nuts. Well, our reality can do the same thing depending on how disturbing you get with it. So even after they shut these things down and dismantled them, they're still having seismic events in those locations. And these were underground deals. But so getting back to the crux of this, in terms of reality, in terms of what we're really going to go through, we have some of it. Some of it being that you're going to become more aware and awake. Whether you like it or not is coming. You might as well get used to the idea and understand it a little so it won't be too, exciting. You won't freak out when things happen. When you understand that you might become telepathic, it can go to that extent. People who have always kind of known things are liable to become fully telepathic. That means you're going to know everybody's thought. Ooh, try dealing with a lawyer under those conditions, or a politician. I think that would be hilarious. Record it. I want the video. That idea. Okay, if you understand that this is a possibility, then you can deal with it. Okay, now you're going to do this twice. And I don't know what happens after you go to a certain point, totally. I've heard stories, and I've been certain people that say they have been there, hint at things, but I don't know it until I get there. But it's going to be extraordinarily exciting. So in terms of the defeating of all of the darkness, and this is the idea that we came up with as Lucifer, Luciferian, etc., these are subscribers and gods of the negative timeline that are doing the bad things. And it's not just one entity. There's a group of them. And as you are happier, as you are more social with everybody, it lightens everybody's load just a little bit to have a little discussion. You can be waiting in line somewhere or doing something or whatever. And you mean you're lost in the beans too? You know, whatever stupid you can come up with that's funny, you just enjoy it, okay? And what that does is that lightens that person's load. Then with a lighter load, their sphere of influence becomes more positive. Now, you have a sphere of influence. You've been around people with a nasty attitude, and they got a sphere of influence that may take up 2 or 3 desks on all sides, and there's a blank spot right around them. Nobody wants to be in that mess. Okay, well, then somebody comes along and says, "You're funny looking," and the discussion starts, and it goes from there. And if the person probably, which they usually are, amiable anyway, they've just been kind of dull, drab, and had a life that went with it, you can understand where their attitude comes from. If somebody comes up with something that's enjoyable, bingo. And this is how you change, how you show an individual to be able to change what they are into something better. And as these things get better, everything does. So you got us little minuscule people on this big planet. Then you got the planet, or the country. Then you got the planet, which is going to be helped by the country. Then you got the solar system, which is going to be helped by the planet itself being a keystone, which helps the galaxy. And, finally we have a thing called a unification. And that unification is to the positive timeline. This is the golden age everybody talks about. And we go boogieing down the road to having a good time. And that's what this is about.
Very good. Now, what thoughts would you like to leave our audience with today?
Oh boy, that's an open door. My suggestion for everybody would be to look at what has been stated here, from the smallest things that you can influence, and experiment with them. Try them on a bigger scale, a little bit bigger something or another. It doesn't matter what it is, any old thing you want to make an alteration in. But the most important thing, and this is the crux of it, kids are a clean slate. They do not have prejudice. They do not have even a concept of right and wrong. These are all of the things that are taught to them. And if an individual gives them the happy, they will spread that like wildfire because it's fun to sit there and giggle and be stupid. If you get everybody doing that, and the kids are happy instead of grumpy when you get them out of school, you must have had a good day today. Oh yeah, it's getting better all the time. If that becomes contagious, then you, as an individual, when you teach, will find that you've learned a lot in how to express something to another individual. Then you can talk to grandma in the in the tall shoes, high button dress, high button old fashioned dress, and the bun and all this, and feel no problem with it, even though you might have piercings and spiked hair. It won't matter, and it won't matter to them because they will then look at that and go, well, that doesn't really make much difference anyway. Same deal. My encouragement to everybody is to practice envisioning a situation the way you want it, knowing the reality in terms of being able to influence with positivity instead of negativity, and exercise that in such a manner that other people can not only see it, but also you can give it to children and other people. Children really take on quick. Some adults, well, they got their own ideas what should be done, and my preacher says this, or my religion says that, or my indoctrination is such. You can't fight the government. Well, why fight it? Why not just make a vision of it changing to what it's supposed to be? If you do that now, I will caution you, the federal government ain't going to be much left. If we go back to the way it's supposed to be, there's not going to be a whole lot left. This is also true of state governments. You do not need to be governed. You don't need a nanny watching over you. You wipe your own whatever, whichever end, you probably wipe just fine by now. So what do you need that nanny for? You don't. And the government's good at hiding things. And I'll give you one little last passing deal, and that's called the soup line of the Great Depression. They now call it food stamps. And they have hidden it within our society very well. That was very, very well done. But you have more in the food line now than you did during the Great Depression. The actual true unemployment rate is higher. The true richness or wealth of this nation has been subjugated to a much greater degree. And there's a few of these nasty things that want to see us starve to death because they enjoy hearing you scream, who are bent with all their being upon making all these wonderful things happen to us. If you don't like that idea, maybe it's time to change the manner in which you do something. A lot of people have been praying for years. Think about that, okay? If your prayer didn't get answered, try some of the simplistic applications of prayer that I have given you today in terms of how to enact, initiate, and beat some of these nasty things over the head with a positive timeline. That's where it's at.
Thank you. You know, we really feel happy, to use the word, that you've joined us today at Exopolitics TV, Drake, and we look forward to being able to invite you to join us again in the future as we journey through the path that you've described. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Thank you.